Hey guys, Probable1701 here, and today we are doing a Patreon ranking. Well, I should say a ranking suggested by one of my patrons. It was one of their video requests for the month. They wanted me to rank these Doctor Who stories with Davros in them. Now, when I'm ranking them, I'm not going to be ranking the actors playing Davros in them. I'm not going to be ranking how Davros is portrayed in the stories. I'm going to be ranking just the stories that he's in, and he's in 5 stories in Classic Who and 2 stories in Modern Who, for a total of 7 stories. Excuse me. And I thought that was a really good idea. I really liked that idea, so I wanted to go ahead and kind of get on that. And we'll start at the bottom with the only story on the list that I don't really like, and that's the Magicians Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar story. I have issues with this one mainly because the ending, much like a lot of Capaldi's episodes, well, I don't know, maybe a lot's not the right word, but some of Capaldi's episodes that start out really good and then get ruined by a crappy ending. Listen's kind of like that. This one does a lot of things I like. I like Missy in it. I like Missy with Clara in it. And I like, I'm guessing that's Julian Bleach playing Davros again. He does a really good job playing Davros. He's a very good Davros. And I enjoy a lot of the interactions between the Doctor and Davros. In a lot of stories, the interactions between the Doctor and Davros are just gold. And this is definitely one of those. And it had the potential to do so much with everything going on with the Doctor and Davros, with Davros dying. And I love the kind of heartfelt moments they have together. And if these moments had been sincere, I think that would have been beautiful and gold. Where it loses it for me is when it all turns out to be a con by Davros. I mean, of course it is, it's Davros. But I feel like you could have done so much more with this if it had been genuine and Davros really was dying. Because, I mean, they're not going to let Davros die, obviously. But there's plenty of ways you could have gotten around that. One, you could have ran into Davros earlier in his timeline. This could have just been Davros at the end of his run, his timeline. The Doctor could have met earlier incarnations of him at any time. And then also, you could have cloned Davros later, been copies. I mean, there's ways they could have got around that and actually made this genuine. Because I love that. We have established only one thing. You are not a very good Doctor. And then when Capaldi starts laughing and Davros starts laughing, they're laughing together. I love that moment. I was like, that is amazing. That was so amazing to me. Of course, then this is also when we had Davros open his eyes, and I was like, dum 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 dum. That's so stupid. Davros opens his eyes. How you just do that the whole time? It's just say, oh god, that's so dumb. I mean, that's almost as dumb as the moon being an egg. Yeah, I don't get into this story a lot. It has a few moments I like, but for the most part, I think it's rubbish. And that's the only really bad one on the list. At number 6, I have Remembrance of the Daleks. I know a lot of people are going to think it deserves to be higher. And again, it's a great story. All of the others are good stories in one degree or another, be it objectively or subjectively. Objectively, it's a good story. Subjectively, I think it's a good story, but I have some issues with it. The little kid jumping around the whole story I find bothersome. That little children's tune that plays whenever she's like playing hopscotch and stuff drives me insane. Like, I hate it. I love the cold open with the ship coming in. That's very unusual for Doctor Who to do a cold open like that. That was a really nice shot. Yeah, this really is where we see the start of Chessmaster McCoy. This really is where we start to see the Doctor move into his more calculating 3 moves ahead persona and kind of away from the more slapstick season 24 persona, which, to be honest, he's not always the slapstick persona in season 24 either, but we really start seeing him being ahead of everybody here. You really get that when the Doctor is having his speech to Davros at the end, which is another great Dr. Davros moment when he's unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc. Goodbye, Davros. It hasn't been pleasant. It's a great speech. It's a great moment. And you really see the 7th Doctor in a new light here. And it's really neat that this is the first time that happens, because of that, it has such an emotional punch. Because I would imagine people seeing this for the first time were like, whoa. And when you realize that he has manipulated Davros and the Daleks into basically doing this to themselves. He's manipulated into taking the hand of Omega and using it, which is what he secretly wanted, and supposedly destroying Skaro, even though it's still there in later stories. I don't quite get that, but I don't really like the design of Davros in this one, where he's mostly Dalek at this point. I'm glad they kind of ditched that afterwards when they brought him back in the modern series, because I don't like that look. I love how it's misleading in the story, where you think Davros is working for the other group of Daleks, when it actually turns out to be the little girl, which is really weird. But I like how misleading that is into thinking that's Davros and then finding out, nope, Davros is the Emperor Dalek on the other side. I think that's a neat little twist. I like some of the other unit people in it. The guy, I forget his actual rank. I don't think he's a brigadier. But I like him in it. And then there's the one guy who turns out to be the traitor. He's fine. Ace is good in it. I love watching Ace beat up the Dalek with the baseball bat and watching her kind of get away from the Daleks. I love seeing, the big weapon Dalek, the Demolitions Dalek, whatever it's called, with the big gun. That's such an iconic Dalek. I love it. And I love the idea of a Dalek war. I love the idea of the Daleks being so prejudiced about what they consider to be purity that they're at war with another group of Daleks because they had mutated so much that these Daleks didn't consider them pure Daleks anymore. I think that is fascinating. And I love that play out here. I love when we see that in later stuff, like in Victory of the Daleks, when the new kind of fruit assortment Daleks come out and they immediately destroy the old Daleks. And the old Daleks agree with it. They're like, "Are you prepared? We are ready." Holy crap. What do you do to the ones who mess up? I love that. And then again, you see that again in Revolution of the Daleks in the Whittaker era, when the real Daleks show up and start killing off all of the, kind of man-made Dalek clones. And again, the Daleks are very particular about what a Dalek is, and if you're not 100% Dalek, you see that again in Dalek, when the Dalek terminates itself, since it's not really a pure Dalek anymore at that point. And even Eccleston's like, "I'm sorry. Wasn't that a good thing? Not for a Dalek." So you really see that play out here. I love the idea of a Dalek Civil War. I find a Dalek Civil War fascinating. So that plays out well here. Again, I don't really like stuff with a little girl. I think some of the acting at times is a little... The Dalek at the beginning looks like he's on a remote control. The very first one they fight, when the Doctor's like, "Don't you recognize your nemesis?" I don't know why. It doesn't strike me as a real Dalek. It strikes me as a remote control Dalek that somebody's controlling off the set. I don't know. It never, that scene never feels right for me. Although I do love when... I do love when McCoy tells Ace, he's like, "Give me some of that Nitro 9 you're not carrying." I love that. So it's a good story. I need to rewatch it. All three of the 80s stories I haven't watched in a long time. I don't own any of them. So they all need a rewatch. Next on the list is The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. This is a good one, and it's my friend Alexa's favorite Doctor Who story. She absolutely loves that one. It's a little too over the top for me. And the Russell T Davies era has this big habit of having a really big season finale, and each season finale has to be bigger than the previous season finale. So they keep building to where you get up to this point where it's just the stakes are so high. It's not just our entire reality, but it's every reality. The reality bomb will not only destroy our reality, but every reality. It's very much a Davros weapon, to be fair. And Julian Bleach is good here, and I love the makeup on Davros here. I like this look for Davros, way better than the Magician's Apprentice makeup. I really like this style of look, a little closer to the Genesis look, I think. I like that look, and Julian Bleach is great. Again, the interactions between the Doctor and Davros are great here. I like and dislike how it uses all the companions. It does kind of give them all something to do, but at the same time, it feels a little over-bloated with companions. Not to the point where I really find it bothersome, but it is noticeable. It is kind of, Russell knows he's leaving at this point. He's having one last victory lap, not including the specials, and he's kind of... It's still a really good story, and I love the plan, how it's utilizing all the different planets, and the idea of planets disappearing had been seeded throughout the season, not just the glimpses of Rose. I do like that Rose gets her happy ending with a meta-crisis doctor. Donna's ending is nice and tragic, but that's really well played. It's a good story. I just think it's a little much. It's a little much. I do like Davros' speech at the end about, I name you the destroyer of worlds. I like that. And how Davros talks about, I created the Daleks and you have your companions, you turn them into weapons, and you see that look on Tennant's face where he can't quite say, no, you're wrong. I enjoy that. And I like Harriet Jones's little scene in there. Harriet Jones, former Prime Minister, yeah, I know who you are. I love the fact that even the Daleks are like, yes, we know who you are. And even the Daleks, I swear he sounds a little annoyed when he says it. I love that. So yeah, good, just a little over the top. Next on the list is Revelation of the Daleks. I need to rewatch this one, and with it looks like the season 22 is going to be the next set announced. It seems when I'm recording this. Hopefully, by the time this goes out, that the announcement will have gone out. I like this story, but it's of all of the ones on the list, it's the one that's been the longest since I've seen it, and I've only seen it once, and that was probably in the very late 2000s, like 2008, 9, or 2010. And I've only watched it once. I liked it. I thought the episode 1 cliffhanger with the statue of him falling on him looked kind of silly because the statue looked like a prop. But the story I liked. I liked the bit with the glass Dalek and the guy kind of in the middle of being turned into the Dalek. That was very well done and very creepy looking. I really hated the music DJ. Again, the story's very vague in my head, but I remember being really annoyed by the kind of DJ character and being really happy when he got killed. I was like, yes! Davros is good in it. I like when you find out what he's up to and his plan of kind of turning people into Daleks and then using the rest of them to feed people. It's Davros being Davros, which I like. And I also like that's the episode we see him get his hand destroyed, so he has the robotic hand later. I need to rewatch it, though. It's nowhere near as firm in my memory since I've only seen it the one time. But I do remember really liking it. Number 3 on the list, and 2 and 3 were flip-flopping back and forth for very subjective reasons. Because I definitely think the way I ended up ordering them, 2 deserves to be 2 objectively. But 3, I enjoy, even though it has objective flaws. I still like to rewatch it, and that is Destiny of the Daleks. Destiny of the Daleks is objectively not as good as other stories I've already mentioned on this list. But 1, it's Tom Baker, and I love me some Tom Baker. 2, I'm willing to overlook the budget stuff because I realized the budget was going towards Shada and City of Death, and a lot of the other productions this season suffered because of that. And I like the story. This is one of those a lot like Robot, where Robot is not as objectively good as some stories. It has a rewatchability to it. It's the same thing with Destiny. Destiny has a nice rewatchability for me. I love the location work when they're at the rocks and the caves. I think that looks really good. I like Tom Baker's humor in this. I love the season 17 version of the 4th Doctor a lot. I love his wit. I enjoy the paper, rock, scissors stuff here. Whether that's accurate to the situation or not, I don't know. I see people debate that all the time. But I enjoy it. Yes, paper beats rock. Rock beats scissors. I love that. I love that scene. I love when he's reading the time machine and the robots show up and he's just like, hello. Now the robots themselves look silly. Yes, their outfits are silly. And they're way too easy to beat. All you have to do is take that little thing that hangs at their waist off and they just bloop, 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 and they lay down. They don't even fall down. They just, like an actor who doesn't want to get hurt laying down there. Okay, you need to fall down. They're like, there's not a union here. I just want to lay down. That's pretty terrible, I'll be honest. But I can overlook it because I'm having fun when I'm watching it. Obviously, the mask doesn't fit David as good as it did Michael when he's playing Davros. That's very obvious. They didn't get the voice modulation right for him either, which I'm looking forward to my season 17 box set making it in sometime before Hell freezes over, so I can actually watch that new 5.1 surround where he's supposed to actually have the voice modulation done right. I'm really excited about that. But I like it. Again, even the Daleks in it look kind of like they're falling apart, and they're not. I feel like the Daleks aren't used as well in this story. I like when they first show up, like when they capture Romana. Do not move! Do not move! Okay! The scene, the actual sets on Skaro when they're down in the city look terrible. They don't look anything like they did in Genesis, which they should, but again, the budget's not there. This is one of those stories that shouldn't rank this high on this list. Objectively, it just shouldn't. But subjectively, again, like Robot, I like it. I enjoy watching it. Plus, since I do own it, I've rewatched it a lot more than I have other stories on this list, including the next one on the list, which is Resurrection of the Daleks. I like Resurrection a lot. I haven't seen it also probably around 10 years, 8 years, something like that. Man, there's just so much going on in Resurrection. Resurrection is so violent. I think it famously has like more kills in it than the Terminator. Just that scene when the Daleks first show up to bust Davros out, and you see all those soldiers getting killed in that shootout, when they are just vastly outnumbered. And at the end, a couple of them trying vainly to kill Davros off before they can free him, and them failing. It's really neat, and seeing everything Tegan goes in this story and how, this just builds on her and breaks on her, kind of like Fury does with Victoria, and how at the end of it she's just ready to leave. It's not fun anymore, she says. She has a kind of sad departure because her and the Doctor don't leave on good terms. She just wants to shake hands and get out. It's a really hard episode on her. Davison is good in this role. I think it's kind of weird they push a Dalek out the window and blow it up. It's always weird to me in Classic Who when you see somebody basically shove a Dalek into a wall or out a window and they blow up. It's so weird when you think how tough Daleks are in the modern series. When you see them just kind of grab a Dalek and roll it around the room. But I like Resurrection. I'm looking forward, I think, to the season 21 box set. That's the reason I'm looking forward to it the most, is I want to be able to watch Resurrection again, and I'm hoping it's the story that gets the updated visual effects, because I do think it needs them. It's a really good story. And then, of course, number one on the list. Well, before I move on to that, I didn't even talk about Davros in Resurrection. Let me talk about that. I like here how he's using that little thing to kind of take over people. He takes over a couple of the Daleks. He takes over a couple of the soldiers. Kind of has them doing his bidding. I love the scene between the Doctor and Davros again, when the Doctor's like, "I'm not here as your prisoner. I'm here as your executioner." I enjoy that scene. This is really the first time I think we see Davros kind of find out about regeneration, because he's like, "Is that the Doctor? What?" So that's pretty neat. I don't find Davros, I guess, as memorable in this story, but I need to rewatch it again. And of course, number one on the list is Genesis. Genesis is just... It's Genesis. I love Genesis. I find Genesis well-paced. I know some people complain it's a tad padded. I disagree. I think it's excellently paced. I like that this is a perfect allegory for the World War II Germans, which is what the Daleks have kind of always represented, but that's made very clear here with the uniforms the Khalids are wearing. Niter is a really good example of that. The guy who plays Niter, who's in several other Doctor Who things as well. He's also in Doctor Who and the Silurians, for example. He's a really good actor. He plays this part really well. He's like just totally devoted to Davros, and he seems to be the one person Davros actually kind of likes, and trusts. If there's anyone Davros trusts, it's Niter. He knows Niter will follow him anywhere. Michael Wisher is my favorite Davros, and Michael Wisher is just so good in the role, the way he plays it, the way he does the lines, the voice is perfect here. Tom Baker and Davros are just so good together, the way they go off each other. The conversations here are just Doctor Who gold anytime they're talking. I talked about Genesis recently when I was talking about top 15 Doctor Who stories, and I talked about how just learning about Davros and his megalomania and just how insane he is when he talks about when the Doctor puts that hypothetical situation to him about having a virus he could release just by crushing his fingers together. And Davros just be like, yes, to hold that kind of power and be God, yes, I would. You know, and you get just, man, this guy's out there. The imagery is well done. The city is well made. The location work is well done. Kind of finding out that it's not so much, you know, you'd always maybe had the impression before that the Thals were the good guys and the Daleks were the bad guys, and it was very black and white. You know, the Thals good, Daleks bad, and you actually find out here it's more of a gray area. You know, both sides are kind of bad. Like, both sides have good people, both sides had bad people, but it wasn't just the Khaled's bad, the Thals good. It wasn't like that. You know, some of the Khaled's were good people who were trying hard to prevent what was about to happen, and they failed and got killed for it. Whereas some of the Khaled's were bad. The Thals were the same way. There were good and bad people in the Thals. So, which makes it much more realistic and like real life. Makes it very easy to relate to. It's just a really good story. Tom Baker is in fine form. Sarah Jane is in fine form. Harry Sullivan is in fine form. I mean, they all do really good. The guest actors are all phenomenal. I really like it. And of course, the Doctor has his "Do I Have the Right" speech, which is just one of the standout moments in Doctor Who. It's a really good story. One of my favorite Dalek stories, and definitely my favorite Davros story. So I would like to know, what do you think? How would you rank these 7 stories? And what do you think of my ranking? Keeping in mind, several of these I have not seen in a long time. And as I rewatch them with season 22, especially, hopefully coming in the next couple months, and I'll have that fresh on my mind, this list may change. Other things to do: click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon if you like what I do and would like to contribute to what I do. There is a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to the 5th Doctor, my top tier patron, my very first top tier patron. If you're interested in my Patreon, there are all sorts of different tiers there. I've really enjoyed watching it grow lately. My minimum tier is only $2 a month, and my maximum tier is $20 a month. And then there's also a $5, $10, and $15 tier with different rewards and stuff. You get to vote in polls. You get exclusive videos, you get outtakes and bloopers and kind of day in the life things where I show off my collection and stuff like that if that interests you. So check that out if you have a minute. Most importantly though, thank you for watching.